Hello world. For this one I'll do audio. Okay, so on my previous videos I actually advanced my work system, my sort of static state, such as it were, what I'm working on top of. And I like to have usually about 7 virtual screens set up in a ribbon, and you always see me going from left to right, and I have very specific meaning for certain locations so that I get the advantage of fixed location, static state stuff. So my first window is always my Vim text editor with my daily work journal in there. This goes on for some, many lines. If I shift G to the bottom of it, when I'm not in edit mode, you'll see that's 230. I'm up to about close to 250,000 lines of journal stuff. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of lists in there, and I'm not very efficient. So if I G semicolon back where I was, you see I always add my new journal entries to the top, and you're seeing a lot more Windows widgetry around my full screen terminal, because I like to see my OBS light go on, but generally not. Generally, when I'm not live casting, I do a function F11 and keep this thing full screen so that it's zero distraction, right? That's a much better environment. One more control plus on the text, and there has everything exactly the right size now for, for blogging, really. I use it for blogging. Actually, it looks a little better that size. And similarly here now is full screen. It's not quite full screen yet, but it is standalone Jupyter Lab, which I can make full screen, I presume, with that same function F11. I got to remember that's function page up. And there you go, that's full screen. And along with this little simple toggle here that turns on and off their tab system, see, whatever your tab you're on, if I had more tabs in this, I know from being in my experiments directory, I can create more tabs. Here's another untitled 8 inside that directory, so I tend to have a lot of untitleds inside of the experiment folder. But whichever one you're on, when you turn on simple mode, it will lock that in, get rid of the tab system and lock that one in. A control B, it's on the drop down menu as well, will get rid of the left rail, whatever user interface stuff. So this is pretty good full screen Jupyter Lab, right? This is focused mode when you really want to get down to do some coding in the REPL environment. And for people who aren't into Jupyter yet, if you set X equal to 1, very typical programming thing, you can examine X, but it's never done running. You could say X equal or plus equal. I'll say X equals X plus 1. No reason to make it over slick before it's time. Run X, and there it's 2. If I do that again, it's 3. If I do that again, it's 4, and it's 4 if I run it up here too, so I put a bar in there. So you can see you can run things out of order. It's a REPL environment. It's an experimental playground place where you do ad hoc work before you lift it up and put it into some other system, like extract packages or create scheduled scripts and whatnot. So it's full-fledged Python. It's Python just like any other Python. It does happen to be version 3.8. I moved myself personally to 3.10. So that's really the other thing going on here in my change of setup. I put Jupyter Lab full screen here, which means that the third screen is always going to be the web browser, right? You see my YouTube streaming stuff there, but yeah, I am always and forever in my work now really going to know in my mind to go to screen 3 for a web browser. It's no longer on screen 2 with Jupyter as the first tab in screen 2, because now that Jupyter runs standalone, Jupyter is screen 0, or screen 2. So, they're using numeric. They're not using 0 base numbering, so I guess I'll use the same terminology. Screen 1 journal, screen 2 Jupyter, screen 3 browser. Screen 4 tends to be a wild card. I have OBS in here. I'm going to actually move OBS over to the next one because I would like to show you here as I bring a terminal up with my Control-Alt-T keyboard shortcut. It's the same thing as double clicking that. I am now in Python 3.10, as you can see from my venv prompt. This is the standard convention for a lot of these virtual environment systems to change your prompt to put the name of your venv in the prompt so you always know when you look at it. So I'm automatically in the GitHub directory when I open a new terminal. So excuse me, there's both a activating of a virtual env, a Python virtual env, not to be confused with containers and virtual machines and all this other stuff out there that's similar in nomenclature. It's even similar tech, but Python has its own containerization techniques, so you don't have to use Docker or LXD or any of those things if you're virtualizing your Python only dependencies. If there's operating system stuff, it's another story, but I digress. What you probably ought to know about this, in addition to the fact that I upgraded myself from Python 3.8 to 3.10 so that I can start using some of its touted new features, especially it's not regular expression, but it's pattern matching. They have a new pattern matching system that works a lot like a switch, a logic switch that has been, or a filter that's been kept out of Python for a long time, out of Guido van Rossum's personal preferences. You know, dictionaries are switches, use a dictionary. And I tended to agree with him, but this new API for search filters brings new features, pattern matching, really. Anyway, I ought to show you my .bash profile, because both these things are explained. Why am I in that virtual environment, and how did I get into my GitHub directory? Well, it helps if I'm in, or I can just do it and put the path in here. I don't even have to change my home directory, but ~/ means home directory. So now I'm loading bash profile into Vim from ~/, which is the same thing as probably, here it is, /home/Ubuntu. That's my home location. So you can see I could just type profile in order to do this same command as I actually just did. In fact, I'll exit out and I'll show you. I have shortcuts for commonly different things. And there's a whole bunch of interesting stuff in here. Not a whole bunch, but a few interesting stuff. If I wanted to open the location I was CD'd into, all I have to do is type open, and there is all my GitHub repos. And that's actually defined here. It says that the word open is equal to explorer.exe command, which is a proprietary Windows thing, of course, and then the dot, which says current directory, or the directory I'm in. So I like having that open ability. I saw that done on the Mac, from a Mac terminal, and I was very jealous. 90% of the way Windows terminal works now is better than Unix on the Mac. So when I see these little things that are Mac niceties, I try and find the Windows equivalent so I don't have any Mac envy. Less and less of a problem lately due to Microsoft's competent job of blending Linux into Windows, really, which is exactly what you're seeing here. And some of the other stuff you're seeing that is kind of important is, oh yeah, of course, here is the activating of the Python virtual environment. And then here is the changing of my current directory into GitHub. That's why whenever I go to a new screen and do my keyboard shortcut for terminal, it looks like this. I'm both in that and I'm locked into that. So I can always exit out of that. And oh, the last thing I ought to point out, this is actually quite interesting. I find it interesting, and it's very tied to this video. I made the subject of this video into exploring Microsoft's graphics for their Linux subsystem. So it's really graphics for WSL2 official from Microsoft, which, by the way, is Wayland based, which is different from being X based. So that's what I'm getting at here. I actually am one of those people out there who, you know, bit the bullet and jumped the gun and whatever other metaphor you want to get graphical Linux. So if I were to type X eyes, I'll have a pair of eyes that follow me. See, it's hard to manipulate it because it's kind of a crappy little library here that's doing it, but it's one of the two mega popular ones. And you know, I could do the same with Xcalc. And I even have all of Chrome installed this way. So, and if it doesn't come up right away, so you've got these issues like now that I'm full screen, I actually have to do function page up to get back the interface, and I can see my Xcalc is put over there. So this is not a Windows graphical system that's happening here. This is a very Unix/Linux graphics system that's happening here because of this piece of software I'm running right here. I'll see if I can bring up its user interface. It's called VCXRV, VCXSRV. Anyway, this is what I'm using in order to get Linux graphics. And there is a command in here that's the magic mystery command that exports to my environment variables the IP of the port that server works through, because it changes all the time. So this magical mystery command, export just blah 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 blah, I'm not even going to read it out, it's so confusing, allows communication to occur between that X Windows server, which is really a piece of software running on the Windows side here, and the Windows subsystem for Linux that can talk to the Windows side if it knows IPs and ports through the virtual LAN and all that. So that's how that's working, and it's fun. It's been fun. It's been one of the more driving sources of views on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of people interested in this. I use it hardly any at all, but since I've been doing these big updates to my system, including, you know, being on Python 10 and full screen Jupyter Lab, I'm in the spirit. I'm in the spirit. The next big thing I've been waiting to do is tear out my old hacky way of getting Linux graphics and putting in the Microsoft way. So that's what I'm up to right now. Oh yeah, I was going to show you, if I go to my channel, YouTube, my channel, and we go to any of our analytics or anything, right? Show you some of the back end of my system. I'm a real weird YouTuber. I YouTube for me, really not so much for you. So I am not very sensitive or empathetic with the audience because I'm doing what I need for myself, and I just keep forging forward in that way. And so, you know, I get some 10,000 viewers almost, and I never seem to much get beyond that because, you know, I don't edit, I ramble on, etc., etc. So let's see, analytics. Oh, I guess, right, so what I really want to show you is Studio. YouTube Studio. Analytics. And then I guess most popular videos just come to the top. There it is. There's those XIs. People love those XIs for the period we're looking at. So this is 28 days. I'm not that big in YouTube, right? In 28 days, I got 433 views on this XIs video, and I've done this a number of times. This is another one that's kind of related to that. People are interested in my channel for my stupid Linux tricks, so let's get on with it, right? This is native WSL2 graphics. There's some other keywords I could use for this, but that's October 5th, 2021, and it's from Microsoft. So it's a tutorial from Microsoft from last month. So if anything's going to tell us how to do it, right? If anything's going to be up to date, it better be this. We're looking for keywords such as Wayland, There it is. It's right at the top. So it supports X11 and Wayland, but it supports Wayland, which means it's like way better than just X11. It'll have faster performance and almost certainly better integration with the Windows desktop. This is a pretty big, exciting one. I've been waiting to do this for a while, and I just cleared out some heavy-duty work for my work job, which makes it possible for me to do this as one of my morning projects before my phone calls really start, because it's related. You know, I do Chrome automation from, you know, the Linux side as little pre-runs on my local machine before I push them up to headless cloud servers. So I would like my Chrome automation, when I turn the viewing of the Chrome interface on, to pop up under Wayland instead of popping up under X11. In fact, it's been so long since I did it, I'm tempted to show you all of Chrome coming up under Linux just to hit that point home. Maybe I can. Chrome browser, I think, is the term they use for it. No. Chromium browser, maybe. Think and don't get hung up on it either. Chrome. Let's see. I should probably CD into one of my automation scripts, but I don't want to tip my hand on any of my stuff in case there's proprietary stuff in there. So Chrome browser. Oh, I already tried the Chrome, and I tried Chromium on its own. Okay, let's just do one Google before I move on to the actual getting it working here, because it's a nice before and after. Google Chrome, probably. I tried that one. Yay, I get to show it to you. How nice. So, yeah, you know, how many people are you going to see out there who can pull up actually the Linux version of Google Chrome on a Windows desktop? That's exactly what you're looking at. Look at how the user interface looks slightly different, and the menu, I'm sure, will be slightly different. My pointer is this teensy pointer you get when you run with this interface. So when you go out to the Windows owned part of the UI, you get your old pointer back. When you go down to the Linux owned part of the UI, it turns into that micro pointer. So anyway, if I close that, it'll release it out of the terminal there. So that's a good before and after. I just got to remember that Google-Chrome is how we get the graphics. So that was a before. And we want to look in the browser now to how we do this, the official Microsoft instructions. So WSL2 enables the Linux GUI applications to feel native. By the way, when we get up to this, all I'm going to do is go over to here and right click on Xserve and quit out of that, because it might conflict. We'll find out. The benefits of it: you can pin Linux. You now integrate both Windows and Linux applications into your workflow for a seamless desktop experience. See, I could already do that. You can now, no wait, I could already, so seamless. It wasn't so seamless. You can see the seams in the way I was doing it. Prerequisites: you will need to be on, you can't do it without Windows 11? It is my first reason and to upgrade to Windows 11 to get graphics for the Windows subsystem for Linux, official from Microsoft, the Wayland way. Join the Windows. Oh, and you have to, okay, so it's double unstable. Not only do you have to have Windows 11, but it's going to be one of those fast or slow tracks because you've got to be on the Windows Insider program to get those builds. So I have to push my machine over the edge of flaky to do this. And then it's going to require special graphics drivers, which I'm sure I'll have because I'm on real Microsoft hardware. So I'm in the sweet spot for this actually working. It would make a good video, but this is a great example how my work, my daily workflow is actually more important to me than pandering to YouTube views. I know this would be a huge video, and I know there's arguments, oh, why don't you make a virtual machine and do it on the virtual, but you know, it's just such rabbit hole stuff that I hit a gotcha. And this was a live video. I taught a lot of interesting stuff, and you know, it's not really so necessary for my daily workflow. So this has been a rabbit hole evaluation, right? So I'll document it here. We need Windows 11 and one of the track versions, developer track insider, Windows Insider versions per, because we have a URL, so I'll know for the future when this comes up again, this is where it told me, so I'll document that in my journal for future reference. And I guess that's pretty much it. This isn't going to happen. It was a good one to explore. I feel a lot more prepared for my next go around, and at some point I'll give in to the Windows 11 shoving from Microsoft. I'll allow myself to get shoved over the edge of that cliff. But the same way I objected to using the Dead Snake repo to get Python 10, I object to being on the Windows Insider program to get the graphics subsystem for the Linux subsystem on Windows. Not worth it. Instability isn't worth it. And then the final note on instability, if y'all getting instability, if y'all feeling unstable on Windows, that's because new drivers per all the ARM64 hardware is percolating out over all the distributions. That makes everything volatile, but particularly ARM64 hardware. It's November. It's you know, holiday season. So what you feel is the pain. The vendors and nested sub-vendors, because we're talking drivers here. It isn't a pretty thing. Scrambling to get their drivers stable. For the holiday. That's why your Bluetooth is breaking. I just throw that in as an extra bonus on this video in case you're on any, you know, bleeding edge hardware like the Surface Pros and stuff, and all your, you know, devices are going wacky. There is a driver Cambrian explosion going on. It's like a Cambrian explosion of drivers. On Windows, because of the Surface Pros and stuff, and on Mac because of, you know, the M1 processor. And there you have it. That's your extra little bonus. So, you know, I like it stable. I'm on a I wish I could pick it up and show it to you, but it's what I'm recording on. I'm just on one of these little old $800 Microsoft laptops from a season ago or whatever. It was old when I bought it, but it was the best, you know, adhering to the 80-20 rule to get a killer piece of hardware with a really thin light monitor, no kickstand issues of the surfaces. So it's really a lot like a Surface, but it has a nice, fine, stable keyboard. Pleasure to type on. The whole thing is lightweight, closes to almost as small as a Surface, but it's a laptop. And it has x86 hardware in there instead of the ARM hardware, so I don't have any of these stability issues. Sure, my battery life might not be as long as some of you ARM64 people out there, but small price to pay for nothing going wrong as these platforms stabilize. I'm not a bleeding edge person. Other times in my life I have been. Right now I am a make it work well, reduce the surface area, reduce the lines of code, reduce the things that can go wrong. And it's not over conservative, because as you see, I'll get Python 3.10 when the allure, when the siren song is strong enough, I will override that tendency and dabble in the bleeding edge. But I like most of the blood to dry, like it has with Python 3.10. As soon as it's in the standard Ubuntu repo, I'm going to rejigger things around so that I have the standard Ubuntu repo Python 3.10 and not this one from like Dead Snake Society or whatever that is. Anywho, thanks for joining me. Hope to do some Windows graphics subsystems for Linux with you in the future. Sorry this one didn't work out so well. And don't forget to subscribe.